Welcome, welcome to the third annual National Assessment Week. This year's theme is Getting Real with Assessment, and we're thrilled to bring together educators such as yourselves, assessment professionals, and thought leaders to explore innovative ways to make assessment impactful, meaningful, and actionable in our institutions. National Assessment Week was established to foster dialogue and share best practices and encourage collaboration around assessment efforts that advance student learning and success. And with that in mind, we have planned, Cecilia Martin and myself, conversations about addressing bias and promoting equity assessment practices. We hope not to be talking at you. We hope to be talking with you. And depending on how many of us are attending this session today, we may need to go into breakout rooms or hold a full group conversation. So again, welcome. And again, our format is topical conversations. We have seed questions. If you pre-registered, you should have gotten most of the questions sent to you by email as a confirmation. We're going to ask that you introduce yourself in the chat, include your name, your role, the institution, and your accrediting body, because it's interesting to see how, those of us in NWCCU are experiencing assessment and accreditation as well as folks from other areas. Due to the size, again, we would ask that you raise your hand when you are in a large group discussion, and we hope that we are going to foster discussion. We, again, may have breakout rooms, depending on how many people attend. If you have resources related to the topic, please share them in the chat. I'm also going to be putting a link to a crowdsourced resource document so that we can share out with you as we move forward after this session and send those out. So I'm Christina Young, Dean for Student Learning at Cascadia College, which is on the north end of Lake Washington in Washington State. We're a small college, and my background is primarily on the learning outcomes assessment, classroom practices, program assessment. And Cecilia?
Thanks, Christina, and thank you all for attending today. I'm very excited about this conversation. I'm Cecilia Martin. I'm currently the Associate Vice President of Planning and Effectiveness at Clark College in Vancouver, Washington. Prior to that, I spent many years at the University of South Alabama in Mobile, Alabama. In my office, we focus on, of course, assessment, accreditation surveys, and institutional research. So thank you again for being here today. We look forward to hearing your thoughts.
One of the things that we do in Washington State is land acknowledgements, which is important, and particularly for this topic that we'll be having today. So based on where I am, we acknowledge that Cascadia College resides in the traditional and occupied land of the Coast Salish peoples, past, present, and future. We honor their connection to the region, pay respect to Coast Salish elders, past and present, and join in solidarity with their struggles with continued systemic oppression. We commit to the care of the land and water and center equity at the core of our learning. We ground our continual efforts to collaborate with tribal communities by listening, learning, and always keeping the well-being of tribal communities in mind.
At Clark College, we acknowledge that we live and work on the ancestral and current lands of the federally recognized Cowlitz tribe and the Lower Columbia peoples. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connections across all barriers of heritage and difference. We pay respects to the Indigenous elders, past and present, as we respectfully consider the many legacies of violence, erasure, displacement, migration, and settlement that brings us together today. We also acknowledge that our nation has benefited and profited from the free enslaved labor of Black people. We honor the legacy of the African diaspora and Black life, and the knowledge, skills, and human spirit that persevere in spite of violence and white supremacy.
Thank you, Cecilia. So, because we had planned a discussion rather than a panel discussion, it looks like we need to move into some breakout rooms. And so I'm going to open them all and randomly assign folks. Cecilia and I will put copies of the questions in our PowerPoint so that you can follow along, and we will be jumping into the discussion rooms. And then towards the end, we will ask that you designate a few people to share out what you've discussed, because we're coming from a variety of backgrounds and because our perspectives may vary. I'd like to hear, we all want to hear the richness of how you address and mitigate bias at your institutions. So, looks like I need to get this going over here. Um, I'm not doing this too smoothly, am I? Cecilia, can you put the PowerPoint link into each of these chat areas?
I put it in the chat,
In the main chat? Okay,
in the main chat, yes, along with the resource document too.
thank you.
It looks like it's working.
I'm slowly working it through here. All right. And are there folks who are unassigned? I still see some, you should be able to join particular rooms.
Yeah, it looks like room 5, David Owens is by himself, so we may want to move him.
Yes.
Yeah, we can move him.
I can try to move him. Can you move him?
I think, yep, I see how I'm going to move him to
Room 6?
How
Or
about room 2 or 1? I'm going to do room 2 because there's only 3 in there. Oh, room 6? Yeah, okay, I
there's
see.
2 people, Carmen and Jared haven't been assigned yet.
Okay, I moved him to room 6. Okay, great. Joyce, Carmen. Look, I think Joyce is in room 6 or.
I'm moving people slowly, or trying to.
Okay.
Looks like people popped back out again. I don't know why.
Okay.
So Jared, are you listening?
Yes.
All right. I keep trying to move you and you keep popping out.
Yeah, it originally opened a breakout session, but every time I hit OK, it just didn't move. So
Okay.
I left and came
Oh.
back in.
All right. I should have you now. And
Yep.
Sorry about that.
It's not your fault at all.
okay. I think we've got If you can see my screen at least, you've got you moved. All
And
right.
now, see,
And
April.
and
No,
Sarah
it's
Holtz.
and Salt. Let's see. Do you want?
I'm going to broadcast a message. Do you?
April and Sarah, was there something with the joining the breakout rooms that was problematic?
I joined the whole meeting late and
Oh, okay.
popped directly into here. So I honestly am not. I'm not
Gotcha.
sure. Okay. So now I'm seeing a new. I think it was because I joined late that I wasn't
That would
assigned
be
a
it.
room. So I
Okay.
apologize about that. I think
No
I'm
worries.
going to room 6.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Let's see. Sarah, where?
Sarah has been assigned, but has not yet joined.
Okay. Okay. I think that looks like everybody's in there. Oh, and they're good numbers. They look
Oh.
pretty.
Pretty even. I was doing it by hand.
All right. Good job.
Okay, so let's try. Oh,
There goes Sarah.
all right, so now,
Okay.
just to be clear, if we could put the, I'm going to put the link again on.
Let's see. It should be.
I need to share this, change the share settings. So anyone with the link can view. So copy link and put into the chat.
Oh, you're sorry about that.
Yeah, that was.
Yep.
Um,
It looks like.
where's that going? No, I don't want waiting room participants. Where is it go?
Hi, Laura.
Here. So I'm hoping that we can recapture some of the summaries. Sharon, you were on a roll. I wanted to hear the rest of what you were saying.
No, just to finish my thought, there has to be some level of accountability. I understand, as when professors have, um, kind of free reign to do what they want, but there needs to be some additional pressure applied to make sure that harm is not done in the classroom. So, if you don't want to get on board with the latest or newest or more effective ways of pedagogy and how to carry that out in the classroom, can we remove them from further harm? And I'm just maybe a little bit more radical, but I'm open to um, those tenured professors, just pay them to do research and let's get some newer professors in these spaces that will cost less money and provide better service to today's collegians. That's all I wanted to wrap up with.
Yeah, no, just as a tail end, the context was the pedagogies and the fact that practices may not have changed, but the students have. Would that nutshell what you were talking about? I'm glad you brought up the idea of faculty assessment ultimately is what you're talking about as one of the things that we can do. Welcome back. I've started recording and I'm hoping that you've got at least one person per discussion group to share out. Those that I was able to dip into had vastly different topic focuses that I'd like to hear what the other 3 groups had to share. So if group 1 would do a quick recap of the highlights or the things that you talked about, and particularly if you had any tips, what immediate steps we could do to take to improve equity and inclusion for assessment. Does anybody in group 1 want to start? You could put it in the chat if you wanted to too.
I don't think we know what number we are.
Oh, okay. And of course, since I've closed all of the breakout rooms, I don't have your names. So, why don't you go ahead or somebody that was working with you, to share in.
Oh dear, I don't think I can.
Okay.
Sally, can you maybe? You were kind of leading us through the questions. Are you able to comment?
Yeah, sure. I can share a couple of like our takeaways. I think we were wrapping up our conversation around really being intentional about your instruction and also your assessment and making sure, I think it kind of goes off actually what conversation you were just having. Our students have changed. And so have we changed and are we fitting the needs of our student now? Or are we doing kind of the same old thing that we've done every semester? It can get really difficult to, or it can be really easy to get stuck in kind of, repeating the semester over. I think another thing we talked about was thinking about rubrics for assessment and how we can maybe tailor a rubric to learning objectives as opposed to different criteria for an assignment so that it can be open for multiple student products, but also sustainable for faculty. We also thought just being open about your practice in your class or in your department and getting feedback from folks and different perspectives can really strengthen any kind of rubric or assessment product that we're working on. So I would say those are kind of some of our takeaways.
Great job, Sally. Thank you.
Anybody else want to just jump in since we have no clue whose number was what?
I can say a few things. I think we were room 4. I don't know for sure, but if that sounds right. But well, Sharon was in our room, so that great conversation that you all were having. Oh, did she have to leave? Oh no, you're there, Sharon. I was like, where's everybody? That was, part of what we were talking about. We also talked about at the institution level. So thinking of like surveys, like the National Survey of Student Engagement, for example, and making sure you have great, not just response rate, which we're all challenged with surveys, but, representative sample of your population and often needing to do, strategic outreach or oversampling for both race and ethnic diversity, but also like for a variety of majors. You may have students in certain programs that are, more represented, more eager, and they respond more. And so I think of student athletes, for example, too. Some students who are in maybe captive audiences and we can get great response rates, but we want to make sure we're getting the diversity of experiences, especially institutional level assessments. We talked about faculty development work in terms of working on culturally responsive pedagogy and culturally sustaining pedagogies. And so I thought, Christina, your question that you asked me, I remembered some of the theorists that we're using in that space, especially around our first year experience in our lower division general education professional development for faculty. We look at Gina Garcia's servingness model and Samuel Musaeus, the CC model, culturally engaging campus environments. And there's surveys that go with that as well. And then also Paris, I forget the first name, but that's culturally sustaining pedagogies, which is sort of a response to the CC model. So we've been engaging theoretically with those pieces with a lot of our faculty development. That's kind of, and then I want to remember also what, was there something else we talked about? I don't know. I guess that's enough since there's other folks to share. Those are a few things. Oh, I know what I want to make sure to say. Disaggregating our data beyond even just the federal categories, the IPEDS categories, and getting into further disaggregation. Now, this can be a challenge. It depends on your demographics at your institution. If you're a primarily white institution, those ends can get really small. But a lot of the California institutions, we have such diversity that it's very meaningful. And we know that no group is a monolithic, so that diversity. But again, you're always balancing the challenge. The challenge with that is always how large are those ends and how generalizable are they? So that's always the tension, but really being mindful of that so that we are looking at the diversity. And I'll add too, we didn't talk about this along the same lines, mixed methodology, qualitative and quantitative. So you're always balancing those two to really get that full story, but you still have the power of numbers, but then you can do focus groups and so forth. So these are more like the broader, not classroom based, but sort of broader assessment sorts of things, institutional, I guess, level.
You've also brought in, one of the questions that came later was how do you get student voice involved? And it sounds like if you're doing those focus groups, that's one that you could do it. So Sarah and David and Sakil were all in one group. That was group 6, if anybody wanted to share out of what you were talking about there. Or not. Anybody else?
I can just say we we talked about a lot of things, but we also, I would say we focused a lot on faculty buy-in and getting faculty to understand the process of assessment across the board. And there goes my train of thought again. Yeah, we talked about that, Christina.
That's a big one. So we have 5 minutes left. And I would like to just repeat that we want to crowdsource some of the resources that you're using. Michelle, you gave some great titles. I will try to grab them from the transcript so that I can look them up. We've got things in the chat. We've also got the link to the crowdsourced Google Doc. There is a post-discussion survey that I've posted in the chat. These are obviously ongoing conversations. I don't want them to stop at this 1 hour. I feel like we just scratched the surface of so many of these things, but it's heartening to know how many of us are trying to wrestle with the difficulties of doing the work and doing the work well.
And I wanted to share one quick thing we've done at Clark College. Statistics, we all know that course, right? And some of us know people that I knew someone that left a final exam because she got so wound up about the exam. But our math department has been they're very dedicated to student success and have engaging in culturally relevant teaching practice training. They've added co-requisites. So I was pulling some data for our accreditation report, y'all, and those of you who are data people will understand when you see the results, they were all moving in the right direction by all the race and ethnic groups. It was so exciting. The overall success rate was in the upper 60s, is now moved into the mid 80s. Of course, we're not through with 24-25 yet, but to me, that was an example of when the faculty were really, they have focused. And again, student affairs, our Office of Diversity and Equity Inclusion, or do a lot of work too. But when you see a campus really focusing on that issue, I was like, what? So I was so happy to see that. So it was very exciting. Sorry, Christine, I think I interrupted you.
No apologies needed. I just want to also point out that, again, ongoing conversation, you've got the links. You should have a link to the PowerPoint, which has seed resources that Cecilia primarily and I have added to, that we're going to try to get that on the shared Google Doc. This is, obviously for those of you who got to go to yesterday's session about the current overarching national scene and how it impacts education, that the work of addressing bias can't stop. And I'll leave on that note. If anybody else has parting notes, things that you'd like to add, please feel free. But thank you.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Christina, do you or does anybody happen to know if the video from yesterday's